Hello and welcome to the video. Today we're going to be taking a look at how to get started with VATSIM, the Virtual Air Traffic Simulation Network. It really is an excellent add-on to your flight sim experience. I use it with Flight Sim 2020, but it can be used with other simulators, of course. The network is manned by keen amateurs, actual controllers from the real world, and also pilots who double up as VATSIM controllers in their spare time. It really is an excellent quality add-on, as I say. Now, I will take you today from logging on to the network and setting up an account to going through to listening it in on observer mode, which is where you can set up at an airfield, listen into air traffic frequencies and learn the phraseology. And learning, it really is the key to an enjoyable experience on VATSIM. You really do have to prepare. It's not something that you can just dive into. Okay, so let's set up an account and get cracking. Okay, then let's get started, and the first thing we're going to do is go to the VATSIM website. Sign up for an account. Okay, now we'll fill in some details in here in a minute, but you will need to have a quick look at the Code of Regulations, Code of Conduct and the User Agreement. There's some very important information in there about how you can and cannot use VATSIM, such as not spawning on a runway, you need to start at a gate, and use of the top-down procedure, which I'll explain a bit later, conduct on the frequency and that sort of thing. But you do need to read through these three documents. So let's get on. I've created a burner profile. First name that came into my head for some reason. Okay, so make a note of your CID. That will be used on a number of occasions in a number of situations as we move through the installation. You'll now be presented with this screen. If you press the login button, you'll get a standard ID and password screen, but I am bypassing this because I logged in earlier and it's remembered me and it's taken me straight to this screen. So on the screen you'll be presented with, you must enter your CID, not your email address, so that number you wrote down a moment ago, and your password, and then you'll get to this screen. So here it says, important, you must complete the new member orientation process before you can connect to the network. Okay, so that's what we need to have a look at doing. Gives you the link there to the new member orientation course. But before we do that, let's just have a quick look at this dashboard screen. So down the left-hand side, there's a number of things that you can have a look through in your own time. Flight planning, there is an option here to file flight plans. I'm assuming that you've used Flight Simulator 2020 already. I use SimBrief, and this is where your CID number comes into play because it will all link together, but we'll go through that a bit later. But you can use some options here for flight planning. I'm not au fait with this, as I say, because I don't use this one. VATSIM AIP, well, AIP normally means Aeronautical Information Publication. So what you'd get here are links to these airports. Again, I don't use this. This is for you to have a look at if this is how you want to get your information. I use Navigraph. which ties in nicely with SimBrief. They're one and the same to get the information I need. So don't worry too much about this at the moment. We're sort of diverting away from VATSIM and just looking at this this dashboard. But let's go back to the start really, and the first thing you need to do, which is the new member orientation course. So let's hit this link. So when you select the English version of the course, you will be selected with this screen. And so let's have a quick look at part one. I'm not going to dwell on this for too long because it's something you need to go through in your own time and learn so that you can pass the test that you will get shortly. I've already mentioned having a look through the user agreement, code of conduct and code of regulations. Got to be 13 years old, supported simulators, connecting to the network, we'll look at that. You need a client. I will use vPilot and we'll have a look at that a little bit later. Call signs, well, this is going into the world of phraseology, and there's a document called CAP 413 which I'll provide a link to. There are also educational supplements within the VATSIM Learning Centre that give you advice on phraseology. Phraseology is all the words you're going to be using when on VATSIM. As I say, you'll need to go through this in your own time, in slower time. But let's just canter through this. Again, flight plans we'll come on to. I will look at this for a second actually, because it's important to explain, and that is the role of air traffic control and the different control positions that you will experience when you plug into VATSIM. So if you can imagine an airfield and the folk sat in the tower, then essentially those guys sat in the glass bowl, as we used to call it, will be occupying these three positions, and that is clearance delivery, which does, as you might imagine, it just is where the pilots will initially contact, and they will be the pilots will request a clearance, and one assumes that they will be given the clearance that they are looking for, whether that be IFR or VFR, instrument flight rules or visual flight rules. Once the pilot is in possession of that clearance, he will be allowed to move on to ground control. The ground controller is responsible for all aircraft and vehicular movements on the ground, not including the runway, and that is where taxi clearances will be issued. And then once you have taxied out and you're close to the runway threshold, close to the runway holding point, you'll be transferred to the tower controller. The tower controller has responsibility for all aircraft moving on the runway and in the vicinity of the airfield. So that is why when you are approaching on an ILS, when it comes to this, to that moment, you'll be transferred to the tower controller, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 miles away. That will depend on the airport's own procedures. Approach, well, now we're going into radar positions. So again, if you can imagine the tower, an approach radar controller may or may not be sat in the tower on the airfield. He could be in an air traffic control centre miles and miles away. So for example, for London, you've got the tower at Heathrow where the clearance, ground and tower controller will sit, but the guys actually doing the radar are sat near Southampton at a place called Swanwick. So but approach is a radar control position, and certainly the en route control positions are also likely to be in a centre rather than in a tower. They certainly are in the UK. So anyway, not as I say, this is something for you to read. The top-down concept video, I'm sure, will explain that as well. And again, this is a visual representation of what we've just been talking about. We didn't talk about the director position. That's another radar position, and the director is responsible for sequencing traffic coming into the airfield. Radar approach, sometimes called departures, or there is a departures position. will unsurprisingly be looking at traffic leaving the airfield. The image here is what's called VATSPY. This is another download, and this is a good way of seeing where traffic is around you. So let's just rewind a second. So you need to plug into this using your CID that we've written down earlier. That will then speak to the, this will all link up with the simulator and VATSIM, and it will plot you on a map of the world, just like a very large radar. And so this is a good way of seeing where you are in relation to other traffic. And it also shows you which positions, which airfields, which radar sectors are manned. There are alternatives, but VATSPY is quite a good one. As I say, you'll need to read through all of this. It mentioned there that you'll be doing a course, and once you've completed it, you will get an option to take the test. So once you've seen all of the learning modules, those parts 1 to 4, and the timer has counted down, you'll be given the option to take the test. And if you say yes or okay, then this is the screen you'll be presented with. Now, I've had a little bash at this already, but you press the take button. And this is what you'll be provided with. Now, this starts at 15 minutes over here, so I've had a little look at this already. But clearly, you need to go through all of these questions and answer them. Now, I'm not inclined to do that for you. Let's have a quick read through them. I think if I selected all the correct questions, that would probably be not the best thing. But let's have a look through the questions, and I've got to get through these and then complete the test myself in 12 minutes, which I'm sure we'll do. So, if flying VFR, visual flight rules, squawk is what in North America and everywhere else? Well, I'm assuming you've used Flight Sim already, and that you may or may not have used the transponder. The transponder is where you put the squawk. The squawk is the 4-digit code that air traffic will see. So which one of these is it? Well, I'll give you this one. It's 1,200 or 7,000 in the UK. What is a standard instrument departure? So what is an SID? Or the other way around, what is an SID? Well, it's a standard instrument departure. So if you look through all these, which is the best fit to that? You'll need to read through these in your own time, but it's that one. Okay, so I definitely won't give you any more answers, but let's have a look through the questions. When flying visual flight rules, pilots are required to maintain their own what? Well, visual is the clue in that question. What is the meaning of the word affirm? We've already had a look at some phraseology, and there'll be some pointers. I'll give you some pointers to some other documentation for phraseology, but phraseology is crucial to VATSIM, and not having to think about what you're saying next is very important. Okay. Altimeter settings can be used in Mercury or HPA, that's hectopascals. That is true. It depends where you're flying. In the States they use Mercury, in the UK and many other countries they use hectopascals. Question 6. Well, there we go. I'm not going to go through all of these, okay? I'm going to stop this here, but clearly, if you read those parts, and I'm positively encouraging you to do so and learn, then you'll pass this no problems. But it's crucial that you do, or else you'll just struggle when you get out there into the VATSIM world. So once you've passed the test, you will be given a message of congratulations. I've already just pressed the OK on that message, but it will pop up in the middle here and it will give you advice about downloading a client so that you can connect to VATSIM, or it will give you some direction on what to do if you want to join as a controller. I'm assuming that we're all looking at this from a pilot perspective, and so won't go down the controller route, certainly not today anyway. So it'll give you your pass mark here. I've got one wrong, which is inexcusable, but anyway, that's a decent enough pass result, and you can review your questions here to see what you got wrong. I've had a look at mine and I'm suitably embarrassed, but anyway, there we go, we've passed and we can move on. Okay then, so you've passed the test. It's time to go back to the dashboard and you'll see this screen, and you would have had this yellow box on the last screen, but here it is taking you to a place where you can download a client for your simulator. So already mentioned vPilot, so if we click this link, I've gone into night mode because I think the contrast is probably better. Approved pilot clients is what you want to be looking for. We're not interested in air traffic controller clients at the moment. That is for another day, not that I've done that yet. And vPilot is where I would suggest you go. And I am looking at Microsoft Flight Simulator users predominantly. If you're using X-Plane or something else, then you need to divert away at this point in terms of a client. But we'll look at vPilot. So let's click on that link. And this is the vPilot window that you will get when you open this piece of software. And what it does is it connects you to the VATSIM network. It also plays a part in rendering different aircraft liveries. And again, that's something for another day, but you can download sort of a catalogue of aircraft liveries, and vPilot will play a part in making sure those render in your simulator. But we don't really want to look at that today. We're looking at the air traffic control aspect. So you want to download this, so let's go to download. So I've hit on the download button. I've already got it installed, so we'll see what happens. But it's downloading the latest version. I assume if I install this, it's just going to install it over the top of what I've already got. I'm not sure if I'm running the latest version. I haven't opened it up for a few days. But let's see. This is what you would do anyway. So let's click on that now. Okay. So it's opened it up on the other screen that I've got, so I'll just bring it in here. So as we saw a minute ago, this is the window that you will get for vPilot. The way we'll do this then is to look at setting up vPilot first, then we'll have a look at VATSPY, and then we'll look at starting up the simulator once we've filed a flight plan and using all this in anger. But let's have a look at settings first. So VATSIM CID, that's the number we wrote down earlier. So my new one is this. When it asks you to select a home airport, you need to put in a 4-letter identifier for your closest airport. Now, it doesn't really matter where this is, but just pick an airport close to where you live. So I'll use Heathrow, and the 4-digit ICAO code for Heathrow is Echo Golf Lima Lima. VATSIM server, just leave that as automatic. Probably shouldn't have pressed OK then, but that is all in there. Notifications, well, you can set those as you want. Same goes for font. Audio, this is where you're going to be setting up your headset. So I have connected a headset now rather than the speaker I was using before, so the sound might be a little bit different. If you've got an external speaker, then you could always set your speaker in there. So I've got an Amazon Echo, so I could always have the controller's voice coming out on the speaker, but still using the headset as a microphone. So just set that as you wish. Disable realistic ATC audio effects. Well, I wouldn't do that because it takes away a little bit of the realism. So, and you'll see what the realistic effect is when we have a look at this in anger later. Don't disable high frequency background noise. Again, it takes away a little bit of realism. And adjust these settings in whichever way you need to. And press apply. Push to talk. So what I do is I press a button on my keyboard when I wish to talk, and so set new PTT key or button. PTT is push to talk. So if you press that, I will now press a button on my keyboard, which is a decimal point, and once I've done that, it registers it there, and that's that done. That is often a cause of problems within VATSIM and vPilot if you are not transmitting. And if I just get ahead of myself a little bit up here, and when we have a radio frequency, communication 1 frequency, which will pop up in there, you have this TX and RX, that means transmit, receive. And when you press your push to talk button, that TX box should flicker to indicate that you're speaking on the frequency. If it doesn't, then there's a problem. But we'll have a look at that again a little bit later on. Right, model matching. So this is what I was talking about, rendering different aircraft. Now I have already uploaded a database, so you may not see this. This is not crucial to using VATSIM. Okay, so don't worry about model matching at the moment. Performance, I would set, I would put those in there, so that's absolutely fine. Updates, yeah, okay. Automatically squawk mode Charlie on takeoff. Typically, you don't select your transponder to on until you are taxiing out, but I think for VATSIM, we often select it at the gate, so the controller can see you. I'm not 100% sure on that, but these settings will be fine. But if the controller asks you to turn your transponder on, then there is a way of doing that on the transponder box instantly if you need to. Certainly I do. Part of my startup checks are to turn on my transponder, which I know is maybe not conventional, but I do it just to make sure the controller on VATSIM can see me. So we've now closed down vPilot, and let's have a look at installing VATSPY. Takes you to this page, and here's the download button up the top here. And this is what you want, VATSPY setup 142. That's what it is today anyway. Again, I've got this installed already, so let's see what it does for me. It's trustworthy. Let's have a look at what VATSPY gives you then, and this is the screen it's opened up on. We are centered on Heathrow, I believe, at the moment. And what is it telling us? So it's telling us that this area here outlined in blue is an air traffic radar sector, en route sector, that is manned. It is this one, Echo Golf Tango Tango, which is London Area Control South. And the frequencies are there that you would use to speak to these controllers. Getting closer to the ground, well, we can see that Echo Golf Kilo Kilo Gatwick has Tower and ATIS manned. Heathrow has ATIS, Northolt has ATIS, as does Luton and Stansted. I would not particularly target airfields that just have an ATIS. If I was looking to launch a VATSIM flight, that's not overly interesting. But that's what that is telling you. Later in the day, you'll have more on display. Here's East Midlands. They've got G and A, so they've got ground and ATIS. Let's just wind out a little bit and see if we can see anything else. There's another sector up here that's manned. The red inverted triangle means the number of outbounds, green number of inbounds, and this is all based upon air traffic in the VATSIM network, and that's what these aircraft are here. These are all aircraft participating in the VATSIM network. They don't necessarily need to be talking to controllers, they just need to be logged in via VATSIM, and they can be operating outside of controller airspace or manned controller airspace. It's probably not the best way to put it. Manned airspace, out in free airspace on what we call the Unicom channel. You will see, certainly in Europe as we get later in the day, that this will become very busy and lots of sectors manned and lots of airfields. So Delta Bravo over here, Brandenburg, Berlin, Brandenburg, Golf Tower and ATIS. Okay, quick look at the settings. Not really much to change here. I would leave that exactly as per default. So I'm not even going to go through that. Map is as it says. Controllers, well, you can have a look at which controlling positions are manned. It's just like an Excel spreadsheet here almost. You can reorder the way in which they're listed. If you wanted to find what's going on in the UK, then come down here and look for the airfields that start with Echo Golf. Okay, so we're looking at these. Birmingham, Luton, Gatwick, etc. And you can quickly find out where the towers are manned. In fact, it looks like Heathrow Approach is also manned, which is good. But yeah, you just need to have a bit of a play around with these. Similarly here, if you've got a mate on the other side of the world who's flying and you know his call sign, you can find them here. And you can see what their flight plan is saying. This is something you've just got to spend a little bit of time on looking through and getting used to. But more often than not, it will be the map that you are using to see what is around you and to see what is open. Technically, we're now in a position to start a VATSIM flight, but before we do that, I just want to recap a few things about VATSIM. It's a very realistic environment. A lot of the controllers are controllers in the real world, or they're pilots who do some VATSIM controlling in their spare time. And so it does make it a brilliant place to operate from a simulation point of view, but it also makes it daunting if you've not done it before. So the best way to start is in observer mode, which we'll have a look at. But the first thing I'm going to do is show you a couple of documents that you might want to have a look at first. So the first one is CAP 413, and that's the radio telephony manual. Now there will be an equivalent of this on the VATSIM website, but this is an international, well this is the CAA version, but this is the phraseology that is generally used throughout the world. And if you have some time, I would have a quick look through some of this, specifically sort of general procedures about how we use the RT, the radio telephony, the radio, same thing. So for example, transmitting technique. Some words of wisdom here: use a normal conversational tone. Try not to say like I do a lot. Avoid excessive use of courtesies. These are all things that apply to VATSIM as much as they do out in the real world, but this is the real world document. But here is the phonetic alphabet, which you really have to learn as a minimum. How we pronounce numbers, so 0, 1, 2, 3, flower. Now this is the absolute perfect sort of pronunciation, but in the real world and in VATSIM, I don't think this is necessarily strictly adhered to. An important one here is something you will hear, and that is the use of 100 versus 100. So if we're talking about flight levels, then we will say 100. If we're talking about a heading, it'll be 100. So you might be told to turn right heading 100, but climb to flight level 100. So if we're talking about altitudes or heights, we do so and we use hundreds and thousands. Okay. Have a bit of a read through that in your own time, and the next one we'll have a look through is UK Flight Information Services. Now, if you plan to do VFR flying, then this is relevant to you. If you don't, if you plan to do mainly IFR, filing flight plans, flying high level A to B in your Airbus 321X, then maybe not so significant for you. But if you are flying outside controlled airspace, VFR, then you need to understand what basic service, traffic service, deconfliction service, but not necessarily procedural service is. And so, again, without dwelling for too long on this, I would highly recommend you have a quick look at this document and work out exactly what is involved with receiving these services. This is a real world manual, but it applies in VATSIM as well if you're going to do this well. We are now opened up in Flight Simulator, and if I'm looking for somewhere to start a VATSIM flight from, then I'm going to take a look at VATSPY as I showed you earlier. So let's have a look at what's going on and pick a suitable place. Well, not much going on in the UK at the moment, but we have something happening over in Berlin. They've got ground and tower manned. So let's set up in Berlin and see what happens. Nothing special about this. Pick your aircraft, Echo Delta Delta Bravo. And although it's not completely necessary when we're going to connect in observer mode, I think it's good practice when you're getting used to VATSIM to set up at a departure gate. So we're there, set up at C6, Charlie 6 I should say. Let's hit the fly button. Okay, so the eagle-eyed amongst you will see that we're actually at Heathrow, not Berlin, and we're in a Delta A320 Neo, not an A330 Neo, and that's because by the time I'd set up at Berlin, the controllers had gone offline, and that is an occupational hazard with using VATSIM unless you're on an event and know that the positions will be manned for a certain time. But anyway, we're now here now at Heathrow because tower looks like it's manned, so let's not waste any time and get into the cockpit. Okay, so let's power up because you need power to listen to the radio. Let's get the flypad up because the flypad will supply us with air traffic frequency information, as will the vPilot window. I'm just going to take a second and lower these volumes. Okay, so I'm going to drag over the vPilot window and I'm going to connect. So let's get the call sign in here that would match what we've put into SimBrief. We haven't done SimBrief yet, we've not set up a flight plan. This is just purely to show you how to connect as an observer. So make sure this box is ticked here and connect as observer, and you will see this now fills up with some information, and the key bit here is to tell you that you are connected to the voice server. Now you can click on this information over here. Well, first of all, this box here tells you controllers in range, and that range is based on where your aircraft has set up. So you've set up at Heathrow, it is telling you what is in range of where you are at Heathrow, and in this case it's capturing both the Heathrow controllers, Echo Golf Lima Lima, and also the Gatwick controllers, Echo Golf Kilo Kilo. And your flypad will do the same. If you come over here and you press the air traffic control button, it will pick up everything in range. But we're at Heathrow, so let's have a look at what we've got here, and we've got ATIS. So let's click over here, and when you hover over here you can set into the active radio window the ATIS frequency.
Gatwick information Echo. Time 1220 Zulu. Runway in use 26 left.
And right on cue,
level, flight level 75.
The ATIS comes to life.
Wind
So
320
let's just
degrees
turn
8
that
knots.
off a second,
Visibility.
because that can be slightly annoying. That will just continue to repeat. But another way of getting ATIS, just as a bit of extra information, is double click on this in vPilot and you'll get a text readout of what ATIS is. You need to know what the current ATIS is before you call air traffic, but we'll cover this when we go into a live flight. And what you're looking for is the information code, information India in this case, which is what represents this information up here. Crucially, things like QNH, runway in use, and so on and so forth. If you click on a ground or a controlled position, then you will just get some simple information about the frequency, when the controller logged on, expected log off time, which doesn't always tend to be very reliable, and you'll sometimes get a Twitch feed or something in here and see video, so you can see video of the controller. But primarily this is here to show you which controllers are in range, and it works in a top down order. Okay, so all your radar and centre will be at the top, tower, ground below it, and then ATIS at the bottom. There is nothing in clearance delivery at the moment because there's no clearance delivery manned. Same for approach, departures, and the centre, as in the air traffic centre en route centre controllers. So let's tune into tower and see if there's anything on there. Set active in the tower.
Super 23 Tango, request taxi.
Super 23 Tango, taxi via Bravo and hold at Lockheed.
Taxi via Bravo, hold Lockheed for 23 Tango.
So I think that's probably enough to be getting on with for the moment. As I've said, I think you should sit in observer mode for a little while and learn the phraseology that you need to use around the airfield, and indeed you can plug into the radar positions and learn the phraseology that you will use there as well. It's not a huge vocabulary you need, but you need to know the basics, and this is a great place to learn. Okay, that's it for this one. Next time we will look at an active flight. Okay, hopefully see you then. Bye for now.